Hey, Fitness Business Podcast family. Boy, do I have an industry expert for you today. Brian Weaver is here. And now listen, before I get started, if you are not in the fitness business industry and you're a friend or a family of Brian, you will know him as Bubba, right? But for our FVP family, it is Brian Weaver. He's completely well-rounded. This is why we wanted to have him on the Fitness Business Podcast. He has worked in the fitness business industry for over 25 years. He's worn a zillion hats. I think he's worked in just about every department: sales, personal training, management, you name it. And he's also, which is really cool, he has a cool job. He is the high performance sales and executive leadership coach for the Jacobson Leadership Academy. Brian, Bubba, welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast.
Hey, Dory, thanks for having me. And thanks for bringing up some memories with Bubba in there. That was a childhood nickname for a long time. And there may be a few folks out there that hear that remember me as Bubba, but that was fun.
That's awesome. I know. I saw you said pretty much you've kept that name from since you were a toddler all the way through college when you played Division I soccer.
Yeah, they would, real quick story, they would, when I scored a goal, they would say, Brian Bubba Weaver. So yeah, even through college, pretty funny.
Wow, I love that. I got to come up with a nickname for myself. Other than, hey, are you related to Ted Nugent? Or, oh, you're like the fish in Finding Dory or Finding Nemo. I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, maybe we'll find you one before the show's over today.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Brian, today you're going to talk a little bit about sales leaders, but I love like your kind of like your catchphrase is how I show up matters. I love that. So I'm really curious to hear a little bit or more about that. But before we get started, what's really cool about you is you are in the process, and I think almost finished, with developing a leadership coaching program. I believe it's launching here in the final quarter of the year.
Yeah, that's right. So it's developing sales leader. It's Transform 6 because it's 6 weeks, 90-minute sessions where we dig into coach led for sales professionals, sales managers, anyone in the sales profession to really help take their game to the next level and kind of bridge the gap between being a sales rep and a sales leader.
What I love about sales is the information or, the skill that you learned about sales is it doesn't only have to work in the fitness industry. It can work in anything you sell, whether it be, cars or a software or gym equipment, anything. It just doesn't have to be about sales, gym memberships.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, right? The content of the course can be translated across any industry, and even outside of sales, right? Just personal development. To have a coach for 6 weeks where you're digging into stuff that's really important to you and how to become a better human being will translate multiple industries and across multiple lives.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hear about all this awesome sales information that you have. I'm going to start off with our first question, and that is, all right, Brian, so let's get started. Our first question is, in your developing sales leaders coaching program, right, you referenced the difference between being and doing, also being versus doing, right? Can you shed a little light on what the difference is and why it's so critical to sales success?
Yeah, so it all starts with how I show up matters, right? And what we've already identified is this will significantly change the results or change the game. What we find is a lot of sales professionals are so focused on the doing, right? The how many calls did I make? How many prezos did I make? How many emails did I send? Did I complete my CRM duties, right? To basically check the box for the boss, right? That seems to be where a lot of salespeople live. And I reference that as the doing, right? My guess is that a majority of us in the sales world spend our day kind of just managing these quotas to make sure that the boss is satisfied with our efforts. What we focus on, or the opportunity that's present here, is can we shift the focus to the preparation around how we show up, which is our being, right? Can we shift from a place of being a victim to being responsible? Can we shift from a place of blame to a sense of ownership for the results that we're getting? can we shift out of a place of stress and anxiety of not performing, not making the goals, et cetera, to a place of calmness, peace, and patience, right? So we focus a lot on making sure that you're prepared for how you show up, because we know that if you show up in the right place or the right mindset, the results for what you're doing will completely change, and you'll find yourself being a lot more successful with the results that you're trying to achieve.
Brian, I completely understand what you're saying. With my sales experience, I get it with the CRM. I have spent so much of my time in the doing, getting all those tasks done, all the to-dos, making sure this person gets the phone call, make sure this person's getting the email or the text, that I agree. I think I forget about the being part.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And don't get me wrong, Dory, like that stuff is critical to the success of a sales organization. And I'm not saying that it's not important. I'm suggesting that the opportunity is, to your point, how do you choose to show up to do it is where we're going to spend time. So it's almost taking one step back and being as prepared as we can, right? Mentally, physically, emotionally, intellectually, to be able to take on those tasks that we know are critical. That's when the game changes, right? It's the preparation to go into those doing and not just doing without being prepared.
Okay, so you have lots of experience, right? Especially as a sales leader. So what are the three most important areas a salesperson should focus on to become more successful? I'd love to hear your advice on this.
Yeah, so I would say the top three areas that I would advise sales professionals or sales leaders to kind of lean into. This one's going to sound really familiar, right? But how you show up matters. I think spending quality time, focusing on as much time there as you are on the doing. What do you want it to look like? What becomes available to you when you show up from a place of power and a place of ownership? I think that would be one of them. The second one would be responsible for your actions and your results. It's super easy to get caught up in pointing the finger on to other people, like why this didn't work or this doesn't work or blah, 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 right? Just whatever blaming game you want to play, and try taking personal responsibility for everything, and then start to see the shift that happens in front of you in your profession and your life when you start owning your responsibility. And then I think the last one, this one's kind of unique, right? It's not unique in a management or structure standpoint, but unique in a reminder that creating intentional activities that you know will provide the most significant impact on yourself, your role, and your organization. What are the few areas that if you fully leaned into 100%, that you know would have a massive opportunity for the results you're looking for? And then here's the catch, make sure you're spending time there, right? Block them out, block time, calendar time, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and be 100% all in on those intentional activities. So I think those three things, right? I would highly advise any sales professional to lean in heavily to those three.
Yeah, just to go back when you gave your list of the three, number two, I had this experience just, we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but Saturday for me was just a bad day in sales, right? And I found that I was doing, I don't want to say blaming, but my focus was definitely shifted away from me. And I was called a mentor, and I was just like going on and on and on. And she was like, stop, you're spending and exuding so much energy on worrying about everybody else and what they're doing and why are they better than me, that she's like, you stopped putting your focus on you and what you're to do to get you to that point. And sometimes we just need a reminder.
Yeah. Yeah. Consider that it's human nature, right? To be a victim, to play the blame game. And I think you make a good point to have somebody in your life, like a mentor, a coach, or a friend that stands with you, can get you out of that place really quickly and back into the place that you want to be.
Yeah, she did. It was great. She just needed to give me about 5 minute speech. And I'm in tune enough that I know, it's like, I know better. I know better. Yeah. Why did I let myself go there? But you're right. It's human nature. And I think we all do it. And then the third point that you made about just taking time, Luke Carlson, he's one of our sponsors. He's a franchise owner for Discover Strength. I interviewed him one time and I've seen him speak many times, and he really focuses on a neat little term. He calls it clarity break. And I'll never forget that. I was like, that's awesome. And he talks about just taking 20, 30 minutes, but you have to be intentional with that time and just shifting your focus maybe off of sales for a minute or off of whatever has you frustrated at the moment. And, maybe read an article in an industry magazine, or, watch it, listen to a podcast or something, but just shift and then bring yourself back, and hopefully you're in a better mindset.
Yeah, that's an awesome connection.
So Brian, you were a Rex member for JT Supplier Group. And with speaking with JT, you mentioned about this Relationshiping Wednesday. Now, I love that. That's a pretty cool little term there. So I'm super curious on where that came from and really what is that all about?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. So I was part of the Rex supplier group and JT's group when I was working for TRX, and our group was in Orlando doing a live 2-day, get together, web seminar, etc. And the topic was discussing outside the box thinking to driving more sales. And we were all kind of going around, and I raised my hand and I said, Relationshiping Wednesday. And for those of you that know JT, his face just kind of lit up of like, what is that? Tell me more. I can't wait. So I kind of dug in. Mike Mellick, who was a national sales manager at TRX when I was there, he and I were talking one day about kind of getting away from your laptop, getting away from email, getting away from the doing it, right? And getting back out to connecting. So Relationshiping Wednesday is pretty much that. It is calling people on the phone, old school, driving over and seeing them if you can, if you have the ability to connect with them in person, and just spending time not talking about sales, not talking about business, purely relationshiping, right? From a connection, a human being connection standpoint. Where this all kind of stemmed from is I took a little hiatus from the fitness industry, and I went to work for a bank representing motorcycle and power sport dealerships in California, where my dad had spent 35 years of his career for an insurance company. So my dad knew all of these people, all of the locations. He knew the business. And ironically, my dad is Brian. We look the same. We talk the same. Like, we are twins, except for a 22-year gap, right? So my dad said, hey, can I go along with you on a trip? And I said, absolutely. So we pull into this dealership. We walk in, and I'm trying to show my stuff. And I'm like, where's the finance manager? And my dad goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. Where is Craig in? And I'm looking at him, and Craig's in his office. We go right back to Craig's office, open the door. Brian, oh my gosh, it's great to see you. Have a seat. My dad and I sit down, and Dory, I am not kidding. We were there for 30 minutes. 29 minutes, my dad did not talk about business at all. Golf, fishing, family, wife, kids, blah, blah, blah. In the last minute, he goes, hey, Craig, by the way, can you help my son get some more business? Introduce him to your finance manager. And then we walked out, and I was blown away of like how important relationshiping is in sales. Kudos to my dad and Mike Mellick, and just really great for how we came up with Relationshiping Wednesday.
Well, shout out to Mr. Mike. Love Mike. What a great guy. Absolutely. I only get to see him once a year, and that's at the URSA conference, but I laugh. We're always like long lost friends when we see each other.
He's one of the best. Yeah, he's one of the best.
Great guy. Well, it's funny because we said about you and JT kind of met first, and you were like, JT's face lit up. And I'm like, yeah, after his face lit up and he kind of talked to you, then he messages me right away. And he's like, we need to get this guy on the podcast. So that's awesome. What goes on behind the scenes. So yeah, if you make JT's face light up, everybody out there, just an FYI, he usually messages me and tells me to do a little research and get you on the Fitness Business Podcast. So Brian, if you were to meet somebody today entering the profession of sales, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I'd break it into 3 buckets, right? I'm a big fan of 3 because it's easier to remember. And as I get older, it's really important that I can remember everything that I think. So the first one, Dory, is mentorship and coaching. I would highly encourage you to find somebody to take you under their wing. If it's a mentor, of someone that you work with that's doing it already, that's super successful, and you like their character and the way they go about it, or there's tons of coaches out there that'll take you on as a client to help you kind of just get better at the process. Sales, it's not really taught in school, right? So when you get out of high school or college or whatever, it's not something that you can take a major in and be masterful at it when you get out. So mentorship and coaching, I think, would be the first thing I would recommend to anybody new to the business. The second thing is practice, right? Understand what's the most important areas that you need to become great at and spend time practicing there, right? Think about how often the best athletes in the world that we see on TV all the time, they're practicing all the time for their moments to shine, right? And I think if you can lean into the practice of what you need to be great at, I think you'll find success really quickly. And then the last one's patience, right? This is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And sales cycles are going to change from business to industry to, like, I went from a sales cycle of, could be a couple minutes to now I'm in sales cycles of 50, 60 days, right? So having patience, give yourself time to learn and grow. Failures and rejection is a huge part of sales, right? So get comfortable with being told no and no one calling you back. And, it's a journey, right? So right now, we're all in such a hurry to get nowhere really fast. Slow down, take your time. It's okay that it takes a little bit longer sometimes to get the sale across the board. Those would be the 3 areas.
Those are really great 3 pieces of advice, Brian. And it, like you said earlier about human nature, it's just hard sometimes, especially the patience. You want everything now. We live in a world that you can have pretty much almost anything you want at the snap of your fingers. So it's to take patience. And I love the fact that you said it's a marathon and not a sprint. In your coaching program, you teach a mindset shift exercise. Can you share a little bit about what that is and where it came from?
I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to attend a coaching program. It was a year-long program. We met 1 weekend a month, Saturday and a Sunday. So all in for 16 to 20 hours for the whole weekend. And we focused on how to become a coach, how to build a coaching business. And then we also got real-time coaching over the weekend. And during the program, because we were practicing as a group, there were always moments where we had to shift out of where we were and go to the next topic. The coaches referred to that as being complete. And completion in this program, we would literally, this is funny, we would all clap our hands at the same time to reference we were all complete with that topic, no matter what it was, and we were ready to move on. The mindset shift kind of came from that. It's an opportunity to leave behind how you're feeling, what's not working, negative thoughts, and really shift into a place of power and responsibility. And the exercise, it basically, you write out everything that's going on in your brain and you recognize, is this really happening or am I making this up? And 99% of the time we're making it up. It's just a story that we're telling ourselves of why it's not working, why we're feeling the way we're feeling. And then you kind of reposition all of those words in a place of power. So I am opposite of, here's an example, right? I'm feeling lazy. Well, the opposite would be I am passionate and full of energy. And when you start to shift into that place and you can pick out a couple keywords that really resonate, you complete or leave behind what wasn't working and you stand in a place of opportunity for what will work. And that's kind of in a nutshell what the mindset shift exercise is.
Yeah, that's a great exercise. I kept, again, I'm sure a lot of our FBP family out there, they catch themselves kind of, again, that negative. And I think, again, we were talking earlier a lot about this. And I was saying I kind of had that panic cloud over top. And my mentor was like, you're just attracting more panic into your life. So you got to shift, you got to mentally shift. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah, before we hopped on real quick, I did it for myself. Right? I was getting on the podcast, as you can imagine, a little bit nervous and excited. And so I had stress, anxious, scared. crossed all those out because I was just making that up in my head, and I reset with confident and happy and playful, right? So when I show up for this, I'm in a completely different mindset to be able to perform and communicate with you the way that I want to.
Just love how you just tied in the whole how I show up matters mantra right there at the very end. That was awesome. And listen, there is never anything to be nervous about coming on to the Fitness Business Podcast. I always say I make way more mistakes than the guests ever do or even dream of.
Yeah, quick shout out, Dory. You've made this experience super comfortable and very fun and playful. So thank you for being you.
Oh, you're so welcome. But now listen, before we go, whatever, I know all of our listeners out there are wondering whatever happened to the insurance job with your dad.
Yeah, so I lasted 2 years. I tried to shift industries, right? As most fitness people do. They think they can get out, and I just found that I missed fitness, and I got recruited back to work for TRX with the new VP of sales over there. And it was just my time to come back.
Good. And then the rest is history.
The rest is history. Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. Well, Brian, Bubba, whoever you want to be for the next, rest of the day. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the Fitness Business Podcast. Thank you for bringing all of your industry expertise to our listeners.
Thanks for having me, Dory. Really appreciate it.